Welcome to the Dave Chang Show, part of the Ringer Podcast Network, presented by Major Domo Media. Thank you, Yola Tango, as always. We have a special guest today, all the way from Denmark. I was about to say Scandinavia, but is that even accurate?
You're Scandinavian, right?
Yeah.
It is accurate.
Yeah. One of my close friends, we've known each other a long time, and it was too long. It's been too long to see him. And there was a stretch where we would see each other multiple times a month for many years, weirdly enough. Those days are probably never coming back to the chef community.
Never.
So it was a nice little time. I'm glad that it happened. But welcome, René. He's been on this podcast before. Why are you here in America?
We have a book. I thought the shameless plugging was ending. We have a new book. It's called Noma 2.0, and it's available everywhere.
Right off the bat, René.
Yes.
I have a problem with your book. Noma 2.0, because this is the second location of Noma. You've moved and basically opened a new restaurant. But in reality, this is like Noma 2000.0. Like, you guys have changed so many iterations of what you do and who you are all the time. But you draw a line in the sand. Explain to people who don't know why it's 2.0, really.
Well, we're coming into a 20th anniversary. And but if I go back in time to, let's say, 8 years ago, Noma had gone through incredible success. It was fantastic. And it gave us so much opportunity, but at the same time, it was also very limiting in a strange way, particularly creatively. We got so defined. With each success, people started sort of to pigeonhole us and define us into suddenly we're the foraging restaurant or the fermentation restaurant. And I told myself every day, just go to work and play around, work as if you have nothing to lose. But the reality was it wasn't like that. And so at one point I said, how are we going to break this? And so we decided just to close the restaurant and move a kilometer down the street. And we found this incredible location on the water right next to Christiania, which is this free town. And so as we're closing up, I'm also thinking to myself, what if we just move 1 kilometer down the road and we just do the same thing as we've done always? And that's when we started doing our pop-ups around the world, where we went to train and learn. And then we opened Noma 2.0 5 years ago. But it feels like we've been there 20 years because of the pandemic. It really does. It feels like we've been there forever already.
God damn the pandemic.
It's crazy.
3 years.
Yeah.
That's how long it's been since the three of us sat in a room, at least.
Yeah.
We haven't seen each other since the beginning of this thing.
No.
Which is wild.
It's the first time. I mean, and maybe even in America, I don't think Americans are understanding this war in Russia and with Ukraine, how much that is affecting people in Europe.
Can you talk a little? You spoke about it a little bit yesterday about the energy.
I mean, people are afraid. Russia, we can kind of throw a rock to Russia from Denmark. It would be like I could drive to Russia if I wanted to. Scandinavia or the Nordics, Finland is there. It's bordering with Russia, and there's a nervous energy around. And besides that, there's also this energy crisis.
How much more expensive are?
So for next year in 2023, we have energy cost that's gone up 700% for Noma.
Oof.
And that's just in general. So in the restaurant industry, that results in, the fishmonger saying, hey, I know Noma is busy, but just everyone else, they've ordered 20% less this December or this November, December. Same thing is for the greengrocer. And now we're starting to see, people tapping out. Even this year in Denmark, can you imagine in Denmark, 2 of the major ice skating rinks, they've canceled this year's ring because the energy costs are too high to actually keep the ice frozen. And we're in Denmark.
Right. I'm trying to put that. I think Americans here like, oh no, the 2 ice rinks are closed. Nobody cares, but that's big deal.
It's sort of the official Danish. They're saving where they can on energy.
Right. It would be like if Major League Baseball was like, we're going to reduce the league by 4 teams this season just to keep costs down.
Or imagine in New York City, what's the ice skating ring at the Rockefeller Center? If they said this year is not happening because there's not enough energy.
It would never happen in America. They were like, what other country can we deplete before we do that?
There's always a barrel of oil in America.
What else can we burn?
Things are harder than ever.
It is wild. So we came out of the pandemic, and finally it felt like, okay, this is ending. It felt good. We started to travel, and people were happy. And then just like that, you wake up one morning, and I remember we had guests from Ukraine, chefs. They were sitting, and they were like really nervous, and we're speaking to them, and I said, oh, surely there won't be a war. Next day, the war happened. And now the nervousness is back to many people in Europe, for sure.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, Chang, you were saying we were driving in the car, and you were like, I feel like something like this is people think we're coming out of a dark time, but like, it's going to be a bad year.
Yeah, you don't need to get me started on like my rosy picture of the world.
Don't awaken that part of Chang yet.
Rene's seen it. Besides the book, right?
Yes.
How many books now have you written? It's a lot.
Well, it's 3, and probably many more to come.
It's more than 3, I feel like. Isn't it? Don't you have 4 of these? Isn't there like forgotten?
Yeah, the one we don't need to talk about. Whatever.
The one that we made 1,000 copies of. It's basically like a booklet.
Yeah.
I
mean, that book is destroyed somewhere. I had that somewhere. That's like I think that's worth a lot of money.
Yeah,
it is. It's very.
And I know you don't even own a copy.
I don't have a copy anymore. We made 1,000 of them.
Yeah, I think I had one, or I gave another one away. I think whatever. I don't even know.
But so of the ones that there are actually in the world, there's the Noma cookbook, the first Noma cookbook.
Yeah, the Time and Place, which came out in 2010. And 2010 was a pivotal year for Noma because that was the year where Noma became Noma for the wider audience. We became number 1 in the world on the so-called list. And then lo and behold, this book we'd been working 2 years on came out in the same year, and it was an explosion. This idea of time and place just became of that moment. Mm-hmm. And then actually it's 4 books. And then I did my journal. And then came the fermentation book, which has been a fantastic book for us. And now this is the book that just come out, which is by far the biggest book we've ever done. There's actually 200 recipes in it. And the recipes, they're actually online. You have to access them through a QR code in the book because the book is already, very big and it weighs like 3 kilos. And if we had to put in full recipes, these are the most detailed recipes. There's all the
Chris,
Noma
that's
secrets.
6.6 pounds for you, buddy.
Thank you. I was like, oh, kilos.
And so if we put that in, it was like 700 pages. But it is the most detailed book we've ever done. And it's actually the book that I feel like I'm the most proud of. And I will also mention that there's 2 co-authors of the book, Jun Takahashi and Mette Søberg, which is, 2 of the Noma veterans. So we've done the book together.
They've been there a long time, too.
Yeah. Mette has 10-year anniversary next year. Jun is 12 next year.
God damn. And he's only 14 years old now. Wait, so I know your publisher. I know Artisan. I know Leah. I have a great affection for her. But tell me what the book is that like the publisher really wanted from you, and what is the book that you said you wanted to do? Because there's always a difference.
No, but that was honestly for this book. First of all, we have an idea that we're going to make a book about nature. That is coming at one point. We're going to call it Noma in Nature. And it's going to be about foraging, about how we interact with the natural world, how foraging has given us so many things. And that's sort of in the works. And but we just convinced Artisan that we needed to do this book, and it had to be exactly how we did it at the restaurant. Nothing in between. Even though that many people, I would say, well, almost all people can cook from that book. It had to be an exact representation of our
Why did you feel that? Why did you feel like it had to be exact? What is that?
Because I'm very tired that everything, when it comes to food, has to be, I'm not going to say dumbed down, but why can't you be allowed to say, this is our work, this is how we do things? Why does everything have to be done in a home kitchen? Why can't you have it be an inspiration for how to look at ingredients? To see how do you put things together. It's a body of work. It's a book of creativity, of ideas. Why do you always have to make it so that, I can go down to Whole Foods and create 10% of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that.
What's wrong with 10% of it?
This is my 10% of Noma meal here.
Well, we did the fermentation program. It's been fantastic to see how many people are attacking us daily because they're actually really using it in the kitchen. I love that. But why make a Noma book that's not a Noma book?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't understand.
But I mean, there was no other way that it could be. You know what I mean? I mean, I can never imagine you making a book that isn't Noma, if that makes any sense. I don't want that to sound asinine, but there's no compromise in that.
I don't want to compromise.
Yeah. It will never happen.
No, and why should anyone compromise? I guess if you're compromising, you are making a decision with that it's been okay. I mean, I could never, of the 20 years that we worked at Noma, all the hours, all the people that's been in there and done all this hard work, and then to publish a book and we can't do what we want, we can't showcase the exact work. Mm-hmm. There was no way. So I would rather never publish a book. I'd rather never do anything like that again if it can be the way we want it.
So if I'm an aspiring, younger chef, younger as in not in age, but I'm just starting out in the business, mm-hmm. I buy this book, and I'm buying this book like I would buy Ducasse's cookbooks. Mm-hmm. And in some way I view that as like a comp to this generation. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about with Ducasse's book, that means that you're younger on the subject. But like he had a whole series of books, and then that turned into Ferran and Albert's books. I feel like the Noma cookbook, at least from the professional setting, is now the I'm taking this seriously. Mm-hmm. I want to learn, and I'm going to copy as much as I can. Right. And I think you see that. What do you want from somebody that's opening this book? What do you want them to take away?
That cooking is wonderful, that the creativity in cooking is incredible. There's so much to learn. The ingredients are out there. Go out and search, find the foods, put them together in new ways, be inspired, dig deep into the recipes. I mean, some of the recipes are 17 pages long, and there's a lot to unpack and learn from them. We have techniques in there that's taken us 5-6 years to perfect, and they're in the book. Just take them and learn and do something with it. And I think that's perhaps the most important subject in this book, is that you have to take your time.
But at what point, for somebody that is, and when you're in this business, at some point you're emulating and copying until you don't. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that with these books, people are not finding their own voice? Because, I feel like a lot of people, whether it's even Momo or Noma or a handful of other restaurants, you see it being things being copied. Mm-hmm. And to some degree, I think when you're reading a recipe, you may not even realize that you're being influenced to a point. I think, how do you encourage somebody to still find their voice, right? When they're trying to also like copy. And I think you have to copy it. At some point, what's your advice to somebody that's trying to find their own voice as a cook, to be like, okay, now you have to not do this. You have to do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. It took you a long time to find your voice.
Oh, yeah.
It did. And I remember that. Like, it was such a powerful moment. You're like, aha, I'm going to do it this way. Mm-hmm. Because what was cooking in Copenhagen before?
Mm-hmm. Cooking in Copenhagen in the early 2000s and 90s, it was bad versions of French food and okay versions to bad versions of Italian food. That's what existed. The Danish food, or it didn't really exist like that. And I don't know, for me, one of the most important things was to travel. And I think I would encourage anyone who has the opportunity to do that. For me, I just, I worked as much as I could. I started in a kitchen when I was 15, and I worked all the time. I saved every single dime. And you know this about me, Dave. I've never been the type to go out and to drink and party. I'm always the first to leave anything.
That's what he's best at, not being a great chef. Right. The best to leave a group of people.
For a Danish man, he's really mastered the Irish goodbye.
But even when I was 15, 16, 19, 20, I just went home. I saved my money. I would go and travel and do these internships around the world. And that's when the curiosity started happening for me. That's when I started learning that perhaps I can go home and there's more to it at home.
But what was the point? And I think this is where I would like people, because I want more diversity in this food world, to not copy you to a certain degree, or Noma or any other great restaurant, because you have to at some point. And it's like what Jerry Saltz always says, at some point you have to copy until you don't. When did you find that moment, like, you know what? No, I'm going to do it this way. And they're all going to make fun of me, which they did.
Yeah. I mean, there are many important moments. And, well, if I can I go a little back in time to answer this, because I feel like I need to. Well, first of all, I'm an apprentice. I am young. I'm in a small little restaurant. It's called Pigeonhole. The chef, he's French, and he's in the kitchen, and I'm working there. I started when I was 15, and I went from being a child and suddenly working 80 hours, sweating on the stove next to him every day. And one of the most important moments for me happens in that kitchen. And that's a moment when the chef, I'm at in pastry, we're only 3 people in the kitchen. And he says, it's Saturday, we're cooking desserts for the staff, a staff of 7 only, in a restaurant that's seated 20. And I cook freshly spun vanilla ice cream. And with that, I had roasted a pineapple all day long in caramel. And I added saffron last minute to this caramel. And this pineapple was, golden like a sunset. I was just so mesmerized myself. I'm young, and we're talking in the 90s, right? Today, like braised pineapple with vanilla ice cream is brasserie food. But I served it up, and he came back for seconds. And then next morning, he was fiddling around with papers. He was making a new menu, and he told me, "Hey, Rene, by the way, that dessert you did, I put it on the menu." And for me, it was just a moment I had never perhaps experienced in my entire life, like this trust and this incredible pat on the shoulder. So that's really when it started for me, to tell the truth. That was the fire that started this thing I've had in me ever since. That moment, I can really boil it down to that. Then, I go traveling. I am a sous chef in Copenhagen. I learn lots of things, master many skills. And then I opened Noma. And at that time, we didn't really know what it was going to be. We just told ourselves, let's use more local ingredients. But we had no clue how to actually put them together, because you can use local ingredients, but if you're making a cassoulet, it's still a cassoulet, even though that the beans are Danish, And then at one point, I'm in the kitchen. I actually have my sous chef at the time. He was with us for 10 years, Torsten Vilgaard.
Big man.
He's like a true Viking, 2 meters tall, a giant man.
Gentle soul.
Just imagine what a guy named Torsten Vilgaard looks like.
Literally, it looks like a guy on the Viking show.
He's taken out of the Viking show. But a very gentle soul. And we are trying to do a menu. Back then, we changed the menu every month. And, we are looking towards Spain. And they were like, every month you were seeing this new gadget or this new hydrocolloid that was doing something special to the ingredients. And I remember vividly me and him standing there. I had my knife and I had a cutting board. And I looked to myself and I say to Torsten, we're going to do the exact opposite for a while. We're going to see if we can do this with nothing, just using our hands, our knives, and our cutting board. Literally, that was the decision we did. And on that menu, we made this tartare that was, it was scraped with a knife, and it was covered with sorrel leaves.
Woodruff too, right?
Woodruff as well.
Is this the muskox?
It was started with muskox, tartare muskox, and then we, had this paste of tarragon with all these wild condiments in it, and you had to eat it with your fingers. And there was another dish of sorrel granita with sheep milk mousse. We had this dish with lemon sole that was cooked with potatoes, brown butter, and then ramson capers and nettle shoots.
Ramson capers are like ramp berries.
Ramp berries that we had made capers from.
Wait, hold on, really quick. Yeah. I want to ask this. Did you ever actually taste that muskox dish?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can remember this. Like, Because like I wasn't right there. Probably I went there like a year after, but like I was there for me at a point when before shit got crazy for both of us. And I remember thinking I'd not seen anything like this. And it was a moment where now, years later, it was like going electric.
Yeah.
You know,
I was going to say there's like, there's almost a thing, like you were talking about the point of these books and everything and like the Noma effect. There was like a moment just then though, Chang, where like both of us already knew instantly what was in that
because
dish.
that dish is I always think of like how an art critic might think about this, because it would be in the pantheon of dishes, whether Rene thinks it's the best dish he ever had. No, that's not the point. It's a dish that changed the trajectory of what Noma could be, because it seems like a simple idea. If you look at it, you can Google it. It's a beautiful looking dish. But in 2022, 2023, that may seem almost like passé now. Because you see that a lot. But at that time, that plating and what it was revolutionary in fine dining, because you're encouraged to eat it with your hands. It is now ingredients that look familiar, but it's not. And it didn't taste like it tasted good, but it was like a tactile thing. And it was exciting. And I picked that up right away. And I was like, oh, something is happening here. And it took the world some time to understand. But I remember that dish. It just when you were describing, it was like, yeah.
But you were just saying, you know, we were talking about, you know, what you want a young cook to get out of Noma 2.0, out of that book. But I remember I never got to taste that dish. My first time at Noma was like 2011 or something like that, 2012. And I remember standing in kitchens though with Noma time and place, and just cooks just gathered around. Like you've talked about many of these types of books, Chang, but like this is the type of book, the type of dish that people just sat and stared at and imagined.
For me, it was a French laundry cookbook, as it was for you.
Just imagine what it might taste like.
But to me, like that dish, knowing these stories, I was like, that's what I want. I love this business, even though I hate it simultaneously. But I love that moment of like that addiction of like that lightning bolt. And I just want more people to take that chance to fail on their face, flat on their face, because even though you made that dish, how many were bad to get to that point?
So many.
And it was so many years of apprenticeship for you to be like, fuck it, let's do it this way.
Yeah, 100%.
My fear is people don't know how to fail forward on that, you know?
Well, I mean, we're talking about this dish was maybe 2004 or 5 when we did it first. Imagine 2004 and 5. Did Facebook even exist? If it did, it was probably just at Stanford University. I mean, everything was different. You still smoked in restaurants. You know, there was big candelabras on all in all restaurants. You know, it was just such a different time today than to today. And so how can you ask, if you're a young cook and you're opening a restaurant, and you know that within probably on the day that you open, you're going to be hoarded with food influencers, probably even critics. How can you have time to fail? You don't have time to fail.
Well, that's the thing, I think, is the secret ingredient to one of the main ingredients to the success of Noma and all the people that have gone through it. Those first 2 years in the wilderness, really, before food became food, before it became glamorized on blogs. The blogs didn't exist. Really, there was no camera phones, no nothing. And it was in this weird period where I don't know if it can be recreated again. But I know that I can relate to this too. You were able to almost go out of business.
Several times. Taste that failure. Just taste. You're not eating it. Putting your feet to the fire where it's like 3rd-degree burns. But you're getting out of that, and you go back in and you keep on fucking up and fucking up. That failure is dangerous advice, because if you didn't have that chance, if you open up Noma now, there's no way it is today what it is. You don't have that ability to grow and to make mistakes. For sure not.
Well, there's also another thing that I see between the two of you when I think about Momofuku and I think about Noma as well, though, where like what you just described, Rene, where you basically saw everyone was playing with hydrocolloids, everyone was trying to pretend they were Spanish, and you said, we got to go the other way. Everyone's zigging, we got to zag. Like, Chang, you got that too.
Well, but here's the fucking important note. He's not saying no to hydrocolloids.
He's not. He's just saying to be something else.
But you can't say no until you know how to use them.
That's right. That's the part that you didn't mention, Rene. It's like you knew how to do all
He
that
worked
stuff.
at LB. I mean, and there was a moment we were all learning how to use hydrocolloids. So you saw a lot of the similar attributes.
It was like
I feel like I should say that I love El Bulli. To me, it is the restaurant, the greatest restaurant
of all time.
But you knew if you were going to be, like Chang's talking about voice, and you knew that if you were going to carve out your own area, you had to do something else.
Yes.
Just like, I mean, Chang, you worked in only like Western French kitchens, and then you were like, you know what? If I need to carve out something for myself, I got to do something else.
You know, I will remember one thing when the first meal I ever had at your place, and today it's so benign, but raw oysters with kimchi juice.
Yeah.
Oy, oy, oy. But imagine you're coming from Denmark to New York City and you have a taste like that. It is so new.
Yeah,
and
that'll blow your hair straight back.
Today is like you see it everywhere. This sort of fermented with an oyster or something, the fermented flavors.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so mind-blowing. I will never, ever, ever forget it.
But the thing is, like, I appreciate, because I know he gets that too, but these are the little things that happened back in the day that nobody really picked up on, except for if you were in the business. That's a simple thing. You're making a gelatin clarification, blah, blah, blah. But nobody had done something like that.
Right. But my point was also that, like, you guys also recognize a moment where it's time to change again, where you're like, you could be at the peak of your power, and you both, I see it in both of you, where like, no, it's time to change again, or we die.
Well, I'm more ADD than him, you know, and
much more ADD.
Like Rene can be so fucking focused that I can't.
Well, you're bouncing around because you can't focus. But I guess so you've talked about a couple of these big moments that Chang's asking you of, like the moments where you knew you were establishing your voice or you need to change it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's that first vanilla ice cream with pineapple. Then there are sort of these defining dishes with Torsten. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, Noma 2.0 was when you had to rejigger again. But there was another moment, and I don't know, Chang, if you recognize this too, but I think that between, you know, we basically would get to eat at Noma once a year for the MAD Symposium. And I remember there was a point where, you know, a lot of the dishes at Noma at one point were like pretty playful, you know, like you had your centerpiece of, you know, what people would think were just flowers and garnishes. And then you would say, and your next course has been on the table in front of you. Those branches are all actually made out of, or, you know, they're baked and you can eat them.
And you could drink the flower water.
You could drink all of this stuff. There was like the 1 minute egg where you would crack the egg at the table and it would cook there. Yeah. I remember we came back the year after those dishes, and you had just been like, you had stripped away all of the, you know, I'll call them gimmick. You had stripped everything away down to like bare deliciousness. Mm-hmm. And like, that was a huge change too at Noma. I felt like you guys made a huge pivot in that moment, just recognizing.
And it was like, you can time it to the development of the lab.
Yeah.
Right. To me, it was like, it became much more about extracting as much as you could from things that were not necessarily delicious and making it super delicious, which is, quite frankly, changed how you guys have made food. I think that was a real moment.
Yeah, for sure. But I will have to say that around that time, that's also when we had the norovirus incident, and that is also
scared you.
I mean, imagine you are a restaurateur and you have mussels on the menu, and these mussels are infected with norovirus. You can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't see it. They seem like a fresh mussel. 63 people turned sick.
Cool business you guys got into, by the way. Just where like,
but then imagine that every single media in the country, all the major news stations, their TV cars, the big trucks, all of them, they're right in front of your restaurant. The day that the world finds out, okay, you have poisoned people. Mm-hmm. It was terrible. And I think that was also a moment when, let's call them the gimmicks, we just got so focused. We're like, okay, either we're going to close from all of this because it was really bad times. And I think that was a fuel as well for us to say, okay, let's focus, let's hone in, let's be Vikings in a way, like go to war.
But I'm not making this up, right? In the wake of norovirus, you guys made another pip. You were just like, fuck it.
Yes,
you got to go 3 times harder and just go after it.
100%. It was a very different menu. It's almost like a fashion show. Like you look at these periods. Yeah. I mean, again, like
I wouldn't wish this a period like that for anyone, honestly, even though they were so fruitful for Noma.
Yeah, I don't know how to like convey that message to people. Is to find your own voice seems such an easy thing to do, but man, it is so difficult.
Well, another thing I've always admired.
One thing I also have to say about this is finding your own voice. I still think we're looking for it.
Yeah.
It's not like I feel like we're there.
But
honestly.
there's moments, though, that you can sort of crystallize. And I think they're pretty clear now in retrospect how different it was, because it was just like this, all of these little things, the zeitgeist thing that happened. And you're like, and it changes the game.
Yes, it does.
But you don't know it until you try. And you have to be in total fear to do that. And you guys kept on doing it.
I must be in fear all the time.
But like Chang, you talked about it as like going electric. I can't, like, as you're talking about this, I can't help but think like music is the best analog, where it's like you are always finding your voice, but you change your sound and you have like an era of what you're doing. You're defining, you're doing a new thing. You know, Dylan goes electric, whatever it is. It's always these different eras defined by what's going on around you that change how you're cooking.
Yeah. I mean, if I have to like think about it, my favorite period was that period, and not in a way because I'm trying to be like, oh, I was there before anybody else. My favorite period were those first, like 2006, right? It was electric.
But the reason why it was because it was the shock of the creation. That's when it happened in those years.
It was so cool to see.
Yeah.
Because it was still raw, right? It's not nearly as refined, and I know you probably look back on it and I was like, oh, that was so simple.
Yeah, but now I know what you mean.
But man, like, getting to see that and tasting that and that process is like night and day to the food. It's a completely different food than you're making now. But that was like a seminal moment for me, because you're like, I'm there and you're seeing this process happen. Very different.
So Dave, when was the best time for you at Momofuku?
I don't know. It's in different periods, right? I think that first year Sambar was like the worst. Back against the wall, the worst. I never ever would want to live that again. I have nightmares about going out of business every day.
But the most amazing, reckless creativity that you've probably had, right?
It was totally crazy.
But do you miss that time though today, now?
I don't.
No? Okay.
It's pain.
Yeah.
Pain because like I don't know how to get to that moment of creativity without that. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it is possible. I hope that you don't. I hope you can. And I hope that somebody figures out a way to do it where you don't have to be in that anguish.
Go through the hardship.
Like not having to experience norovirus.
Yeah.
Is it possible? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think it is?
Well, I'm not sure. Actually, I'm thinking.
Like, can you experience the adrenaline and like anxiety of a gun pointed to your head without having a gun pointed to your head?
Every time Noma pivoted, there was some, we don't have to get into it, some inflection point in your life
that caused it.
That was causing it.
For sure.
And I remember talking to you in Australia many years back. I'm like, dude, like, and I saw it in your eyes, like, oh, here we go again. It's gonna fucking change again. And I see it, and now before I'm now like trying to be as encouraging as possible. But that's what I wonder, is it, are we stupid because we're taking that risk, or is there a better way to do it? And I don't know.
I don't know either.
Right? It's a fucking weird chicken and egg.
Yeah. It depends what you mean by better, I think, right? Because if you're like you described this earlier today, the kind of person who like always wants something new and boundary pushing versus somebody who's like a craftsman. And it's a beautiful way to go either way. The repetition and perfection of an art day in and day out versus what you guys both seem to be chasing, which is like finding the edge, finding the limit always.
What are you chasing?
I don't know anymore. You know, it's like the pandemic's changed so many things. Every day I'm like, you know, less involved with the restaurants in the day to day, but do I want to just do something, open up something? I don't know. I'm less sure of anything these days.
Would you want like here's the David Chang 8-counter restaurant. It's open 4 days a week, and you're there.
I would be open like 2 days a week, 1 day a week. But also, it's like my cooking, I think, is very different than it was before. Would you like that? I would love it.
Yeah,
I would love it. I still miss cooking.
I want a table.
You know, like
I want a table for that restaurant.
Does that appeal to you though? Would that appeal to you? This like just you and your
I personally think that is the future of this sort of creativity, and the future of kind of special experiences is more and more specialized and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, agreed. Like in Japan.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a second where you're going again. But to me, it's like, for me, I want to make things as simple and as pure as possible, right? So if I think about it, it's like, I just want to make Korean soups and stews, and that would be my restaurant, and charge like as much money as humanly possible. But everything's made from scratch, and it's just like a bowl of rice. Here's some soup and stew and some vegetables, and you're done. But I'm making it all for you. And I want people to be nourished and to feel good and to feel happy without any of the bullshit. In a lot of ways, that's how people in Japan cook anyway, at least those restaurants that are small counter.
For sure.
Well, I was going to say, whenever we talk about like the sort of function of restaurants, what's indispensable about restaurants, or what kind of restaurants are indispensable in the future? It's always barbecue, sushi, and Noma. That's basically what we talk about.
Can I ask you this? These are the kinds of questions I'd ask them if we were just having dinner or drinks. I remember when I was at LBE, I remember visiting Farhan, and he was just on the computer, and he was just going through Flickr. Flickr was how it happened. I mean, it was well before Instagram or anything.
Sure.
And I just saw him from a distance clicking through all the people that were copying LBE. And that's when I knew it made sense. He's like, I'm fucking done. Like, what's the point? No matter how much I create, it's getting copied almost immediately. I feel that one of the, in my opinion, one of the reasons why there's no point left. In where the last iteration pre-pandemic, when you moved in the new space, which seems like such a long time ago, which sort of feels like yesterday simultaneously, I feel like you saw so many people, when you see cladberry on a menu in like Texas, like fucking the world's upside down in food, right? Sea buckthorn and Iowa, something's fucking wrong, right? People just can't, which again, like I'm not trying to say no, but it feels to me similar when you made the pivot, like, you know what, we're going to do something very different. The food that you make now, even though you've now you've given all the engineering and structure and recipes, now it's like, we'll do it. It's not easy to make. And I think part of what it was elevating the level. This is where it was different, is elevating the level of execution and plating to a level where, good luck. Good luck.
Right.
Because now it's fucking skill. And not to say that it wasn't, but now it's so much more intricate, but you're working more than ever to hide the seams in the construction.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's not easy. I see people trying to copy it a lot, and it don't look that good.
I've seen a fair number of insects made out of dried fruit. I've seen a few of these.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think that's got to have been knowing you like somewhat in your mind, like seated as like, this is an answer to this. Maybe
it was. If I can go back to the Ferran thing, and everyone was copying him, I know with Ferran 100% certain that what would have bothered him much, much more is the day when he was going onto Flickr and there was no copies on it.
That's true.
That would have been much, much, much worse for him. And perhaps even for me too, if I can be honest about it.
That's that juice,
Yeah. And so
we're all addicts.
We're publishing books, and there's Instagram, and I was so inspired in my early years, particularly from Ducasse, from Michel Bras. Huge inspiration. Then came El Bulli. And at a time, in the beginning, I think Noma was just a mix of all of that, strangely enough, until you were able to mold it into something that felt like, this is me. This is actually what I enjoy. This is who I am. This is how I like to see things onto a plate. And even not only that, but this is also how I would like things to be served. This is how I like the restaurant to look. This is how I'd like people to feel when they come in, all of it. And I think that's also when it becomes, let's say, a unique restaurant, is when all of this belongs to something that is one signature in a way, if you can say it like that, It's not only the food, it's also the people. It's how does it look? How are you serving the food? How do you want people to talk to the guests and all those things? I mean, it was incredible. I remember many, many years ago, I read the book Down and Under in Paris and London, and by Orwell. And there's this moment where he's a dishwasher in Paris. Do you remember this? Have you guys read it? He's a dishwasher in Paris, and he says, look at these waiters. They come in from the street, They are like, they have barely enough clothes to keep them warm. And then they dress up in a suit. And for a moment, they act as if, oh, we are the same as you are, dear guests, you know? And then it resonated so much with me, this act. And I worked in so many restaurants where it felt like we were acting. And I remember that moment just being, okay, at Noma, I don't want that at all. The chefs serve, let's put the chefs inside. The restaurants, they're so awkward. They don't know how to say anything. They have their dirty hands, dirty nails, tattoos all over, piercings. And that's when also something different started to happen that actually complemented the food. And it was the beginning of a culture.
I mean, I think you guys are, I mean, Chang, I think you're right that you're both, you have an addiction to the sort of, the praise, the reaction you get from when somebody eats something and their mind is blown. But to both of your credit, there's also, you both have this real love for like just witnessing creativity in action. I think you both like to see this.
I find that to be one of the most beautiful things when I'm with Rene and I see it happen. And oftentimes it's frustrating because he's actually best in class at that, I think. You know,
well, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I mean,
go ahead.
Because
Continue.
Why do we have to be in a podcast for you to tell me this?
It's like a real Chris Farley show thing going on.
I've known you for 20 years.
Just telling him compliments.
No, in a sense, it's like there are times where I see it. I think what's better than you as making food on this, which I'm trying to say this because like I don't think people can emulate certain things because I think what you do better is you're crafting, and I've seen you do it, craft experience. Right? From a guest perspective of holistically what they want. And it's never just what's on the plate. It always is in your head. Has to be tied to the feel, to the tactile texture, everything. I don't know of anybody that like immediately, like a fucking like beautiful mind, just it all connects. I've seen that several times. No better example than when we were in Slovenia. No, not Slovenia. What the fuck were we? Austria. And you made a goddamn sushi restaurant out of that horse stable.
Oh, yeah. With the moss sushi.
Yeah. I was just like, holy fuck. It was like one of those shows where, you know, you come back in like 30 days and it's a wholly different thing. And he did it in like 2 days and you're with really world-class chefs. Yeah. And I saw that and I was like, oh, it's now gotten to a point for him where you've developed this muscle in your head where it can be done instantaneously. That to me is where no one's going to be able to copy what you have.
I remember my first.
They think they can, but I know that they can't.
I mean, okay, so I do think the value of experience and the value of constant learning and the way you sort of build up your library in your mind of ideas and things that you can, you know, if you learn yourself how to actually open that library at the right time, which I feel this is one of my forces. I'm good at putting things in the right places in my mind and then taking them out when I need them in the moment. Pair that with a fantastic team in the test kitchen. We are 6 people in the test kitchen. The one who's been the shortest time is 8 years, and the one who's been there the longest is 15. And we're all still pushing. We're all challenging each other. Then suddenly creativity can seem like at warp speed because we put all this. But it has come with so much trial and error, so much reading, so much traveling, so many hours spent just chopping onions and doing all that sort of extremely boring work to get to this point in my career where I'm 45. I've been in the industry for 30 years. It comes with so much effort, you know. And when we talk about how can you get to this point as a young cook, I do still believe that this big amount of effort is necessary in the beginning. You're going to have to just go out and absorb and learn and spend time doing menial things to learn it. It's almost like Karate Kid over again, you know.
Do you think that creativity's better now with cooking or less developed because there's so much information, right? Imagine if your book, you know what I mean?
Think it's less intuitive. It's less intuitive. It's less playful. It's more organized, which in some cases is better. But it used to be more playful, more based on intuition and craft. You know, oh, these ingredients come in. Let me put something together. And you were challenged to make the dish of the day or the menu of the day.
Like I'm thinking about years back when your lab and our lab were trying to figure out the misos and the split pea, all that. Trading information, like talking about it because it hadn't been done in a standardized format. That took a long time. Now, a lot of restaurants are making it, and they don't have to go through that struggle of figuring that out. Are we at a place where there's so many points of access in that information that it's a bad thing now? So how do you like untrain yourself to just like go out there and experience things? Is it possible? Because theoretically, cooks and chefs should be more creative than ever, I think.
Well, don't you think they are? I mean, don't you think there's more interesting things happening? I mean, I come to a place like LA, and the quality of food, the quality of cooking. I mean, at the book signing today, there was I forget his name, but I'm Mexican and my girlfriend is Jewish and we have a Jewish Mexican deli. You know, there's all this creativity happening in a just a different way. And I don't know. I maybe it's because you're here, but I felt like, okay, LA is there's something bubbling here.
I feel like, Chang, the difference, I think what you see like today is like remix culture versus like writing original classics.
Yeah, I'm a broken record on that for sure. So,
well, I did want to say we should talk about Japan a little bit, but I did want to say one thing. You're talking about these young cooks, and one thing I was fortunate enough to sit in on sessions of this at both of your restaurants, once at Noodle Bar and at Noma. But you talk about young cooks finding a voice, and one thing that I've always really found special, and I know other restaurants do this, but I thought was really beautiful was like when you guys would do sort of like Saturday night projects types of things, like service is over. This is not for the public. These dishes that like chefs from at Momo's, all the restaurants at Noma, it's like all of your cooks can present something. None of this is like a test to get on the menu. None of this is like because we're trying to like bleed you for R&D. It's just like, let's all just sit here after work and see what we can do. Like that kind of stuff. Like maybe that doesn't happen often. And you guys talk about having test kitchens and labs and things like that. And I know you guys probably were happier in those labs than you were actually working service.
Say it's especially from my perspective watching Noma, less so from my perspective with Momo, it's doing things you're not supposed to do because they're not efficient. You know, you have to really struggle to do things that you're not supposed to do in an efficiency basis. I think as an organization grows, it's like
it's harder to make space for that. It's harder to make space for inefficiency.
As it gets more complicated, it's a desire and drive to make things more efficient. I think that, you know, you have to make things fucking hard. And with that,
also, you drop creativity.
Yeah.
Like having space for inefficiency means space for creativity. Like doing something that's pointless.
I actually really 100% agree with Dave on this. For sure.
Yeah.
Like the more efficient and the more organized, even though creativity is also organization, but it's organization within four walls of do whatever you want, you know. But no, I do agree with Dave with this quite a bit. That there's so much efficiency, and we're being sort of forced into this modus of operation where it has to we have to have covers and we have to expand and so on and so forth. That you just have to have the stuff on the menus that makes everyone happy, or as many people as possible happy. I mean, when we first opened Noma in those early years, we had many days a week when we have 0 guests. 0 guests.
What?
Not that I want to go back to that, but when I look back at it as today, wow, that was special.
Did you have, in those 0 guest days, you show up to work and you knew you had 0 people, nobody in the book, no reservations. Would you just stand there waiting for a walk-in?
No, I would work on things.
I dined at that restaurant and there was like 3 people there.
Yeah.
I was like a solo. Yeah, I remember that.
At the craziest, Rene, tell us the truth. How long is like the wait list to get a seat at Noma? It's like
now
craziest.
it's never been more crazy than now.
And what is it? Like thousands and thousands of people waiting.
We can have thousands of requests for a table for a Friday or Saturday, and how many people it is, I have no idea. But let's say
back in the day, Dave was one of 3 diners.
No, really. I remember the table where I sat at solo, looking over the water where there's,
I've had many days where you come to work and there's 0 in the book and the phone doesn't ring one time. And you think to yourself, really?
Silence is deafening.
There's 1 million people in Copenhagen and not one of them
Not one of them accidentally came here.
Not one of them want to have dinner at Noma, not even call to check. And it's not that it's Monday night. You know, we're talking about a Thursday night. Yeah. And then on the Friday, you might have 12 guests.
Let's get into Noma, Japan now, because we got to get to dinner reservation. But a few months back, Chris and I were talking, and not weirdly, upon reflection, I think one of the most important moments that have happened that changed the whole game of food was when you guys were at Noma Tokyo pop-up. Mm-hmm. What year was that? 2016?
Ooh,
2015?
15.
We had Ivan Orkin on, and he didn't realize because he was live broadcasting that on Instagram.
He was the first guest on the first day, on the first lunch.
And everyone I know was watching that live.
Yeah, I know.
I know. Which is like, must have been frustrating your end, but like was crazy. That's a crazy thing to think about.
That had never happened before.
I know.
I was one of those people looking, I was like, clam tart.
Yeah.
And ever since then.
Sashimi clam tart.
Sashimi clam tart.
That was like such a monumental moment in food because even though you weren't going to
It was 14, actually.
14. Yeah. That would have taken like 4 or 5 years without technology, right? Mm-hmm. Of a Apicus magazine or some niche magazine that documented this dinner that you got it 5 years later, like
or
2 World Cups later.
Something about a black garlic leaf finally trickling down to me.
And the fact that it happened immediately, I was like, holy shit. And I took some time, and I said it as a joke, but it actually wound up being probably one of the more, important moments in dining.
I remember that moment so well. We all did. And it was kind of, I like Ivan, but it was kind of disappointing. Because
he just put all the magic out there.
It's like,
But it didn't stop. It doesn't stop people.
It didn't stop, no, because you wanted everyone to arrive there and have the surprise of not having seen anything.
There's no more surprise. There's no more surprise.
No.
That's the thing.
Do you think you're going to do what like Dave Chappelle does and comedians and just put away their phones in a purse that they can't have until they
That would be impossible.
Because half those people, I mean, the truth is, right, Rene, like half the people are paying the price because they want the pictures.
Yeah. I mean, I think people ask me this all the time, and I say, of course we'd still have guests, we'd still be full, but it is a thing that people just really want and enjoy. And it's almost disrespectful, I think, to people. Even though that, and funny enough, I was speaking to the team about this the other day, because I remember the first moment that somebody had a smartphone out at Noma and filmed me. And I still remember the feeling of I felt like, excuse me, you're filming me. You can't do that. You have to ask for permission. And, a few weeks passed on, and then suddenly it happened again and again and again. And now it's just all the time. And so you can't, what are you going to do?
Are you ready for this new pop-up? Can you let everyone know? If it's too late. If you're hearing this for the first time, you don't have tickets to Kyoto.
It's sold out,
No,
right?
It's sold out. It's the fastest we've ever sold out of anything. And we were so nervous about this one because Japan had just opened. We had been planning this for 2 years. And it sold out very quick.
Do you have a couple of extra large seats if a couple of big Asian boys want to make their way over to Kyoto, though? A couple.
I'm excited for you guys. Japan is...
I don't know if Dave has can he sit for like 3 hours for a fine dining?
Dave,
no.
Okay. Do you think it's going to take Dave 3 hours to eat the meal?
I can't.
I'll put David on the spot. First time David came to Noma, he sat with his eyes closed and like looked up in the sky and chewed and smiled to himself. He loved sitting out. And then fast forward like 5 years, and he eats the entire menu in 37 minutes.
With Cho, the famous dinner.
With Cho. I've never seen anyone inhale, the ebliski or the dumpling? He inhaled it. He like threw it up and it hit his tongue and he's like...
I mean, not to be racist, but it was legitimately the Kung Fu Panda eating the dumpling. Just up in the air, into the mouth.
Even David Cho was shocked.
Cho was like, this isn't Nobu.
I thought he was going to Nobu. That's true.
He actually said, I'm eating with Garfield.
That was a fun night.
give us what people. So you've been in Japan. When I talked to you a couple weeks ago, you were doing the 88 temples walk. You've been doing some research.
Yeah.
Give us break us off a little taste of.
Well, we're going in Sakura season. It's spring season. To me, that's the best moment to be in Kyoto. It's a fantastic moment because that's when all of Japan just turns bright green. All the wild shoots on the forest floor, all the wild plants and ingredients are coming out. Seafood is spectacular. Kyoto is the home of kaiseki cuisine, the finest expression of Japanese food, arguably where the Western tasting menu originates from. I mean, it's incredible for us to go there and learn from all of this and to be able to mix this and make a fusion of it with 20 years of Noma experience, with all this culture and all these ingredients and all this knowledge that exists in Kyoto, and put that together to a menu for our guests to enjoy. I think we're gonna do something special.
Mm-hmm.
I am very, very worried about saying these things because I'm afraid of jinxing things. So most of the time I don't say anything, and I hardly ever enjoy when things go well because I don't know why, but I've never been able to do that. But I have a feeling it's going to be special this time.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
I think this is also the future in a lot of ways, making something that is permanently ephemeral. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good phrase. I like that.
Permanently ephemeral.
Doesn't make any fucking sense, but it does.
But I do agree with you on that as well. Something that
pop up.
It comes. There's all this effort. There's all this. I mean, we've been planning this for 2 years. We already have a team on the ground. We've been harvesting wild kiwis this summer near and around Kyoto. We've done ferments, and we're going to be there 3 months before the entire test kitchen to make this menu.
Wild kiwi?
Wild kiwis. We're gonna fly in 103 people from our team.
So this is the part. Okay, so
and
this
then
is
it
the
all
part
goes
that's
away.
Special. This is the part that I actually think you're addicted to. Is like there's something magical about like getting to uproot your entire family, basically your restaurant family, and go on like a retreat with them for 3 months. Like Mexico was very special.
It was so special. Nothing can never compare to that.
And this is the secret. It's not about just like, oh, we get to take a vacation, but getting to go with everyone you work with somewhere.
It's not a vacation.
In Australia,
It's not a
Mexico.
vacation. It is not a vacation.
You've done Tokyo, Australia, Mexico, and now Kyoto.
Yeah.
And then you have plans for another one?
Yeah, we do. And
Can't say.
I can't say. I'll tell you afterwards, but then you can't tell anyone because it will be the most crazy thing, the one coming after that. But I will tell you this much.
Yes.
You will never guess it, Dave. Never. Because it's so special. And I'll just leave it with
Detroit, Rock City. That would be sick.
Pre-pandemic, we had 3 pop-ups lined up. Funny enough, one was going to be in LA. The pandemic killed that. Then we had Istanbul and Tbilisi, Georgia.
LA, this is why you can't have nice things.
You just blew it.
Istanbul would be sick too.
Yeah, but
I
it's
don't know.
hardly the moment to be there.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to get there, but to Kyoto as much as I'd like to. But I mean, how are you nervous?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: like, I know it's going to be fucking sick. That's the thing.
No,
Yet you're still nervous.
Of course. There's 2 types of nervous. There's nervous, I don't know what I'm doing. There's nervous because I really want this to be special for everyone. Our guest, for myself, for my kids, for my team. I really hope it's going to go well. Let's go and do the best that we can. I'm nervous about that. I know that as a team, as a unit, we're going to make something special. But, I'm nervous for how it's all going to go, what's going to go wrong, and so on and so forth. I'm excited nervous. It's a big difference to I don't know what I'm doing nervous.
Well, there's nervous and there's worried, and you're nervous.
Yeah, there's worried nervous and excited nervous.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been to Kyoto during Sakura season, it is.
I will have to say I'm also worried all the time, by the way, about all sorts of things. And that's something me and Dave share.
I know.
It's actually terrible.
I know.
Our poor wives.
Yeah.
Your poor wives, your poor Chris's.
I don't have a Chris.
Well, if you do have a ticket to get to Kyoto, that's going to be amazing for anyone that's dining.
Go, fuck you. I wanted one.
I think if you figure out how to get to Kyoto, I think they'll figure out. You might have to wash some dishes.
I might sit in the back. It's true.
We might be able to figure something out.
Well, listen, Noma 2.0 is out now.
Mm-hmm.
You can get it at your local independent bookstore or your online retailer for books.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to name that giant company, but it's out now. Buy it, consume it.
NomaProjects.com. Keep clicking until the garum shows up.
Yeah,
Man.
garum and all the other things coming.
Mm-hmm.
Again, my son does not like everything, and he tasted it, and he was putting on everything.
And that's not the garum; it's a new thing.
Coming. I can't talk about it,
Yeah.
but it's legitimately. I was like, "Fuck, that's so smart." It was so smart.
Goddamn.
And everything else, which I can't say, which is what I'd like, but I'm hyping it up for real because it's like, it's fucking really, really, really delicious stuff. So, sorry, Chris. I don't have any for you.
Story of my life.
Thanks, Renee.
Thank you so much.
All right, give us 5 stars, however you rate this. Go check out nomaprojects.com and go buy Noma 2.0.